Hello and welcome everyone to One Windows podcast once again. And today we have a special guest from a university, the University of Central Missouri. We have Dr. Phil Hull with us.
Thank you.
Welcome, Dr. Phil.
Thank you very much.
And taking time out to taking time out and joining with us for this podcast today. We are very happy to have you on our show.
Well, I'm happy to be here. So thank you very much for the invitation and the time you've taken to be with me today.
Thank you. Thank you. So Dr. Phil is the Director for International Student Services at University of Central Missouri and will be here with us today for some time to discuss with us that how actually the admissions will happen and everything about UCM's history and future. So let us begin with the questions with Dr. Phil. Dr. Phil, what actually made you to come into the education industry and especially at the International Student Services of University of Central Missouri?
Well, education actually kind of runs in my family. And also scientists. My grandfather on my mom's side was a research chemist, but he taught on the side when he was in Kansas City. And then my dad got his master's in teaching a number of years ago and taught junior high math and science, and then got into NASA right at its inception. And I actually started out as a chemistry major, but then I switched over to English, and I couldn't stop with one degree, so I got my master's and then my PhD in English, American literature, Canadian literature, and Great Plains. And I was a professor for about 12 years. And during that time, I, with a colleague of mine at one of the colleges I worked at, we led faculty-led study abroad programs to Europe. And then I got to know people in the International Education Office at a previous university, and I kind of backed into international ed. I started out with outbound study abroad students, and then over the years, I've done a variety of things from international student advising, recruitment, and then while I was at another institution, also in Missouri, I became director of that school, and then an opportunity arose to return to UCM where I had worked previously as director. And so it's been kind of a long journey, but a really enjoyable one that I've had a lot of great experiences with.
Nice. So I hear you saying about NASA where your father was working. Did NASA or the spaceships or the rockets excite you as much?
Oh yeah, I mean, my dad, so back in the days of, 16 millimeter projectors and everything, he had access to kind of the archives of footage from the Apollo projects and Apollo Soyuz and all that. So he would bring home some of the film that was shot up in space, and we would project that onto our living room wall. Usually on a Friday night. So probably not a typical growing up experience, but and my sister and I, we would be able to go on to the Ames Research Center facility where NASA was and go in and see, the Galileo aircraft, which had a satellite. It's a 747 that's outfitted, not a satellite, but outfitted with a projector, a telescope. And so they'd take it up to about 60,000 feet and be able to project it into the heavens. And my dad would take my sister and I to planetariums. And a good friend of his in the Bay Area ran a planetarium, so we'd get to preview some of the shows that he did.
Nice.
And go up to the James Lick Observatory and look through the big telescope. So I think that probably kind of gave me a little bit of taste of the world, maybe what the universe could offer. And my parents were just always very curious, and I think that kind of rubbed off on me. And I certainly didn't see myself, doing this kind of work when I was getting my PhD, but it's led me to over 70 countries and just a wonderful opportunity to see the world.
Awesome. I'm sure your passport must be full of stamps of entry and exit and different visas.
Yes, I still have, I even still have the original passport that I got when I was 13 years old, and
the handwritten
my family,
one?
Was that?
We here in India we had old passports which were handwritten with the name and address and everything.
Oh wow, yeah.
Yeah.
So
We still had printed
yeah.
photograph on it, but other things were handwritten.
Okay, yeah, that's pretty cool. So, but yeah, so my first international experience was going to visit my aunt and uncle with the rest of my family when they were on sabbatical in London. They were both English professors as well, actually. And yeah, and we went to England and then to France, and then it wasn't for another 20 years until I got outside the U.S. again, except Canada.
Okay.
So, yeah, and then since then it's been a pretty wild ride.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Talking about the wild rides and the experiences, I want you to share one experience which you find it very exciting from your international recruitment journey.
Oh gosh, there are a lot. I think if I were to encapsulate it and just kind of distill it into an experience that I've had in multiple countries, it would be being there for the very first time. Because you might read about a place or even hear about a place from students. So for example, my first time in India was 10 years ago. But I had, kind of interacted with students from India, and they'd told me stories about the food and about the cities they were from, about their culture. But quite honestly, you never know what to expect until you arrive there. And you, for example, here in Hyderabad, this was the first city I visited 10 years ago this past September. And the smells, the traffic, the food. I still remember my first ride going to Warrangal, and at that time it was like 7 lanes of traffic. So you had the goats and the other animals, even the chickens that were along the side of the road. Then you had the tuk-tuks and the scooters, and then the cars, and then the buses and trucks. And then everybody had about, half a foot as a passing lane. And there was a Bollywood movie on the bus that everybody was watching, and it was an experience.
And I'm sure things have drastically changed
oh my gosh,
from last 10 years now.
I traveled to Warrangal yesterday, and I didn't recognize the road. It wasn't the same. I mean, there were a few places where it was a little rough and there was some gravel, but that's because they're continuing to pave
Construction.
it. And it took a lot less time to get there than it did 10 years ago, I'll tell you how much.
Yeah. Good to hear that.
Yeah.
See, India has been progressing every day, every hour, every minute. There's a lot of things happening, whether it is in terms of infrastructure development, whether it is in terms of, quick commerce. You know the experience of quick commerce already, and in terms of education as well. So while we consider these all developments and exciting things happening around, and you said you travel around the world, you traveled 70 countries, and I'm sure most of the countries you must have traveled for international recruitment. When you compare the other countries, in Asia, whether Southeast Asian countries or China, where do you think India stands today for international recruitment, especially for the US institutions?
Well, I think India still remains a strong, in some ways probably the strongest market for the U.S. Of course, as you know, historically, it's been a gateway for a lot of students who are interested in IT degrees because the United States has in the past and continues to be a leader in technology and also technology education. And we've even seen that continued growth and evolvement at the University of Central Missouri. When I was there before, the main programs that were offered were computer information systems, big data, computer science. When I returned, cybersecurity was added to that. And then in the last year and a half, they also added data science and AI to the master's curriculum. And so it's a recognition that as the tech industry evolves and changes, which of course is at a very rapid rate, probably about as fast and furious as the infrastructure is in here in Hyderabad, because I still remember when the metro system was still being first being constructed, and now to see it kind of
fully
the
developed
tendrils still going out and still expanding. I think that's a good metaphor in some ways for not only the tech industry and the way it's taught in U.S. higher education, but also at the University of Central Missouri. But you know, I know there's been a lot of interest and concern about change of administrations and the visa acceptance rate, but I think there's still a lot of promise ahead. I think sometimes it's just riding the wave, and we do always see those periodic dips, but even after, it's almost like, you know, the stock market or something, there's a slight correction, but then there's continues to be that upward trajectory.
Correct.
And India, you know, found itself in a position where they've eclipsed China this year in terms of, you know, being the top sending institution, and I can only see that gap continuing to increase.
And this is all happening only because of the number of students which are getting graduated in India and the excitement and exposure which they are getting it, and that is one of the reasons why they would want to look towards the you know, Western countries, especially the US, to go and get themselves skilled further. You know, for their either maybe bachelor's education, master's education, or doing their PhDs. And I'm sure when you mentioned, you know, UCM has added many courses over the period of time, especially in the field of technology. They must be seeing something in the students, especially the international students and the Indian students. So what are those key factors which the admissions team look at in a student, in an application, in a student's application, let's call it, to give them an admission?
Well, UCM is a public university. And so one of the things that students will find is that the admissions process and the admissions criteria for a public institution versus a private institution are going to be much different. I don't think it's fair to say that the bar is lower for public institutions, but because we are a public institution, we are, our primary mission is to serve the taxpayers in the state of Missouri. And that means that the admission criteria, especially for undergraduate students, is set lower relative to private institutions. We can't be overly selective because we are serving the general population of Missouri. As a result, we can't artificially inflate our admissions standards for international students or students outside of our state.
So you'll have to keep it at par with what you expect from the students from the home city and as well as from the international students.
Exactly. And then, of course, with the application process, a lot of private institutions will ask for personal statements, they'll ask for letters of recommendation, and maybe other documentation that is outside of the standard application. But at a public institution, you will typically find both at the undergraduate and the graduate level that we are looking at a student's academic record. What is their performance, either at their high school or at their undergraduate institution? What are their grade marks? What's their mark sheet look like? And in India in particular, sometimes at the graduate level, different programs might look at backlogs, because sometimes that's an indication of student success. So at UCM, if a program coordinator at the graduate level is looking at an academic transcript, if a student has more than 20 backlogs, that might result in a denial. Or if they have backlogs in courses that are specific to that program, for example, in computing courses, if they're applying for computer science, if they have more than 20, that might be a reason for denial. And so, but below that, as long as students meet our basic admission requirements with their English proficiency score, whether it's a TOEFL, IELTS, Duolingo, or Oxford ELLT, and then their GPA is converts to our admission standards, then they will be admitted into UCM.
Into the UCM.
Yeah.
Right. So when you say we, no, we accept this, we accept that. When you say we, I'm sure you are referring to the admissions committee.
Yes.
And admission committee definitely comprises of a team, right?
Yes.
So who are these team members actually? Who are these people who are looking at these applications, and how does this application go from step by step?
Sure. Okay. So my office, International Student Services Office, as you said, I'm the director. And then we have an assistant director, and then we really kind of have two main cores of full-time staff. One is the admissions team, one is the international advising team. We also have a full-time recruiter, an office manager, and we're in the process of welcoming a SEVIS CRM manager to our office who will start in early February. And then we also have, I think, 16 student workers that assist with things. So on the admissions side, we've got, I think, 6 full-time staff, and 5 of them, their primary responsibility is to review the applications once they are complete. We have another person who is helping with the initial review of transcripts, and also some of our student workers help in that process as well. There are certainly a number of institutions from India that we receive transcripts from, and so we're very familiar with, certainly JNTU is the big one. And,
I was about to ask that.
Yeah.
No? How many transcripts do you see in a day from JNTU?
Oh my gosh, I have no idea. But good guess is probably about a year ago we had over 10,000 applications come in.
That's huge.
For fall of 2023, and that was about a backbreaker for the staff.
Awesome.
I can tell you. But my guess is that out of those 10,000, good guess would maybe be about 5,000 from JNTU at least.
Oh.
So, but yeah, we've had many successful students come from there and from other institutions throughout the country, especially the Telangana and Andhra Pradesh states. But anyway, getting back to your initial question about the application process. So, like I said, it's very, very simple process. We have our own online application, $75 application fee, and then students also have to provide us with an unofficial copy of their transcript. It can be an in-progress transcript, so they don't have to have received either their high school diploma or their university diploma, and confirmation of degree completion.
Right.
And we have some students who apply at the start of their final year of their undergraduate program in their 4th year, and we can still make an admissions decision on that. And then students also have to submit their English proficiency score. I will give a shout out to Oxford ELLT because we do have a partnership with them, and we have a dedicated UCM landing page, and students can put in a code and get a discount of 50%, and so pay $80 to take that exam. But we do accept IELTS, Duolingo, TOEFL, and Oxford ELLT at the graduate level, and the same at the undergraduate level with some other opportunities for English proficiency demonstration. Students coming from IB high schools, and also students coming from international high schools with WASC accreditation. Once all the documents, including a passport, get into the system. That begins the initial review process. So that goes to the admissions team in my office, and then if they are admitted to UCM as an undergraduate, that process is over. If they're a graduate student, after the initial review in my office, then it goes to the graduate program that they are applying for. So for example, cybersecurity, there's a faculty member who's responsible for reviewing the cybersecurity applications, those for computer science, industrial management, MS in technology. And depending on the department, it might determine the length of review time. Some departments do it much more quickly than others, but generally we find within about a 2 to 3 week time frame for graduate applications, they receive a notification on whether they've been admitted or denied. And then after the admission process, after the students have received admission to UCM, either at the undergrad or grad level, then it goes into what we call the I-20 workflow.
Right.
And that's where kind of the other half of the office, the international advisors, take over.
Okay.
And they're the ones who review the financial documentation that the students have submitted, and then issue the I-20s.
Right.
And that might be an additional, depending on our workload in the office, that might be an additional 5 to 10 working days.
Nice.
Yeah.
So I would like to give a small clarity when Phil was mentioning about continuing transcripts. He means to say that a student still studying in the 4th year of engineering or their final year of their bachelor's degree can still apply. They don't have to apply with a completed CMM or a final degree certificate. So
Correct.
that's really a good thing.
Yeah.
And when you mentioned about the Oxford ELLT, Bjorn is a good friend who took us to the Space Needle when we were in Washington, Seattle. Very good examination, very detailed coverage of the curriculum there. So I'm sure the students will be happy to take the Oxford ELLT exam. Right. So you mentioned to me about application going to a program department where they are applying to. Who are these people at the program? Are there the faculties or there is a specific dedicated person especially for reviewing the application?
They are actually graduate faculty, and within their respective departments, they have been assigned as program coordinator.
Okay.
And so they are the ones who oversee that program. So, for example, there is one faculty member within our computer science and information systems department who is the primary reviewer for computer science applications. Another one who is the primary reviewer for cybersecurity, who also happens to be the department chair.
Right.
And then another one for data science and AI.
Right.
And,
so these are all the people who are involved in academics as well, plus these reviewing of applications so that they select the right candidate for their right program.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. So that really makes the classroom more diverse, and they know who all they want to take in their classroom studying these subjects.
Yeah, and my staff works very closely, is in close communication with them, so we know if if there are going to be any changes in the admission criteria, or if they have any questions or concerns about certain applications or want to confirm something, and if there are changes that we need to make in the process to ensure that there's greater efficiency and improving the time from application to admission. We're working closely with those departments and program coordinators to continue to make improvements on our process.
And I'm sure while you review all the documents which come along with an application, there is one document which every institution asks, and there has always been this notion that how can this document become more perfect? I'm talking about a document which is called the statement of purpose or a personal essay. Every institution or every student really wants to make sure that they prepare a perfect personal essay or a statement of purpose, and the institution wants a perfect statement of purpose. What is it with UCM when this document is in picture?
Well, first of all, like I mentioned earlier, as a public institution, we're different from private schools. Now, I will say that there are some graduate programs at UCM that do require letters of recommendation and might require a personal statement. But the ones that are, I would say, most popular and among our international students do not require such a document.
Oh, nice.
We don't require a personal statement. There are no essay prompts. There are a few programs. I know our Masters in Speech Language Pathology requires one. There are some other master's program that are probably a little bit
So
more
you mean to say
clinical.
only specific programs would
Yeah,
require
and like
this?
our masters in English, they're going to ask for a writing sample and probably others
As a
some
part
other-
of their document.
as a part of their documentation. But the majority of our programs, and certainly those ones in IT, industrial management and technology, our masters in business administration do not require those types of documents in support of the other
Correct.
materials that are required for admission.
Correct.
I will say, just as a note for all of those out there, now my background is in English, and I had a lot of experience helping students in my previous role, and sometimes in my current role, with applications for graduate school. And we would talk about personal statements or essay prompts, and I would review those and give them critiques and things. And I think the main thing is you need to be honest about yourself.
Correct.
And your goals and why you want to go to that institution for that degree program.
Right.
The other thing that's very important is it's almost like when you're writing a cover letter for a job.
Right.
You're selling yourself, and you're telling them, what you bring to the university, what you bring to the program, as much as what the university and the program is going to do for you in terms of furthering your education, maybe making you a better leader, giving you the hands-on experience that you need to have before you embark on your career.
Correct, absolutely. So how do you differentiate these students? Let's say I give you an example where there is a student who is showcasing very good potential in their academic marks, and of course, and you will be able to definitely identify, okay, here is a good student profile. But if there is a student profile which is not so academically strong, but the student is super passionate and is a very potential candidate, how do you identify those students? Because I am sure a lot of students who are in this position really want to know that how can I be standing out of all those applications when they are getting.
Well, again, kind of goes back to our admission criteria, and what we're really looking for is past academic performance. We're looking at English proficiency. Do you meet the minimum standard? And really, it's not on the front end. It's not a process of identifying is one student better than the other, more exceptional than the other. And I think in some ways a good way to look at it is, if a student has maybe not performed as well in the past, but still meets our minimum requirements for admission, this is an opportunity for them to show what they're made of.
Right.
And demonstrate that they can excel. And I think it really is both for undergraduate students and for graduate students, making the most of the opportunity that you have ahead of you, rather than dwelling on, maybe past successes and failures. And so that can involve not only your success in the classroom, but also other ways that you get involved on campus.
Right.
And that might be through on-campus employment and working with people. So for example, the student workers in my office, getting a taste of what it's like to work in an office environment, and the work ethic and a different culture that might be in the workplace that might be very different from what they've experienced before. Some students may find that more formal. Some students might find, office place in the United States much more relaxed. And so I think that contributes to their education. And there are a lot of opportunities for students to get involved in other ways. So we have over 150 student organizations on campus. We have a very active International Student Association. That is primarily populated by undergraduate students, but our graduate students are certainly welcome to join. We also have a very active, I think the name of it is Sanskrit, or Sanskriti, I can't remember which.
Sanskriti?
But yeah, but that's our Indian Student Association.
Oh, okay.
And they also are very active. And each of those organizations They are student run. They do have either a faculty or staff advisor, but it's the responsibility of the staff, or excuse me, the responsibility of the students to determine, what programs are we going to do, what types of maybe excursions,
what type of events are going to get
and
organized.
things like that are we going to hold. So for our international student organization, they have two big events every year. We have an international food festival in the fall, and then we have international culture night in the spring. And the International Food Fest is probably one of the most popular campus events, not hands down. I mean, anything that goes on campus, we have members of the community, we have students, we have staff, we have faculty who show up, and we always sell out the tickets because the students work with our food service provider. They cook meals from their home country and serve it. And this year we always have two lines, and this year they kind of separated them appropriately. We had the really, really hot food from India, China, Korea, and let's see, Nigeria, I think.
And when you say hot food, the spicy one.
Yeah, the really spicy ones, And then they had the less spicy ones from, Dominican Republic, I think Sweden, I think Japan was in there. I can't remember a few of the others, but it's very popular.
Nice.
And it's a great trip. And it's a great opportunity for students to be ambassadors of at least a sliver of their culture. But we've also, so our Indian Student Association, another event that they do every year, they get permission from the university and also the athletic department to hold, now I can't, the name's escape, Holi.
Okay.
A Holi festival.
The festival of colors.
Yes. So they go out on the football field and they have all their colors. They have all the dust or whatever you want to call it, right? And they go out on the football field, and of course that brings out domestic students as well. They advertise it, but then also some passers-by, they see this and they're like, I've seen that before, and then they go down and join in, and it just becomes a great thing. And they also celebrate India National Day as well. So
nice. So when you were mentioning about food, and I'm sure I know that you mentioned to me earlier that you love cooking.
Yes.
What is your favorite Indian food?
Oh my gosh. Actually, okay, this might sound kind of funny because I know everybody asks me, Indian students are always asking me, have you tried biryani? And I have many times. But my two favorite foods here in India, I love dosas, and I also love dal.
Dal?
I love and the brown dal.
Okay.
That's my favorite.
Dal makhani.
And I think for me, I don't know, for me that's my comfort food. And I don't know, there's something about dal, with the ghee and everything, it just kind of, if it's made right, it just kind of melts.
The dal makhani is one, or maybe the dal fry can be the second one.
Yeah.
Which is
I don't
a
know,
little spicy.
you're testing, I'd have to see it in front of me, right?
Okay. After this recording, we'll definitely go and have some good food.
Oh my gosh, yeah. and also speaking of food, I will say that in Warrensburg, where we're located, our grocery stores have done an amazing job of stocking their shelves with
Indian ingredients?
With Indian ingredients, with South Asian ingredients, with ingredients from Japan and China. Those are kind of some of our biggest populations on campus. And so they've done a fabulous job of making sure that certain foodstuffs are available for our students so that they can cook those meals in their homes, in their apartments.
Correct.
Yeah.
Awesome. So coming back to the admissions part, even though UCM has such a easy application process, lowest amount of documentations which you need, there is a still chance that some student can miss applying something or giving a document. Can they still stand a chance to get a conditional admission, to fulfill the requirement which they got
Yeah,
must
so
have
the,
missed?
yes, so the main thing with the conditional admission, so main thing we look at is the English proficiency score. So if that does not meet our admission requirement, students have two opportunities for kind of a pathway into their degree program. One is IEP to degree, and the other is our ELIPS program. So if I'll use IELTS as an example, because it's easier with the bands, and I know this a little bit better. But with the ELIPS program, if for the graduate students, 6.0 is a minimum requirement. For undergraduate students, a 5.5 is the minimum requirement to be fully admitted into UCM.
Right.
Now, if students are one band below that, so for graduate students, if they're at a 5.5, undergrads, if they're at a 5.0, then they can apply for the ELIPS program. And what that means is they can take one academic course, and then the rest of their curriculum is intensive English program courses. So ESL classes. And then once they test at the end of each IEP session, I think the classes are every 8 weeks. They're tested and determine if they can then go into full academics. And so then they are able to fully start their academic program and begin further progress on their degree. At the graduate level, if they are at a 5.0 or below, and I think there's a cutoff of 4.0, and also undergrad, if they're at a 4.5 or below, and I think it might be a 3.5 cutoff, then they can be admitted into IEP to degree. And so in that case, they're taking a full curriculum of ESL courses, and similar to the ELIPS program, once they test at the level for full admission, minimum admission standards for English proficiency, then they can start on their degree program.
Nice. That's right. So this question always comes to me from the students that, okay, now that I have been admitted into the university, what is it in there for me apart from the academics? Does the institution help me with internships? Does the institution help me in getting hands-on training to be ready for the job? And when can I get a job right after my graduation? And where all can I work? So all these questions keep coming to us, and we really want you to throw some light on this.
Well, at the undergraduate level, internships are a requirement, but many students do take advantage of internships. Some students do multiple internships, typically during the summertime, and also typically not in Warrensburg. Warrensburg has about 20,000 people. Besides the university, there's not a lot of big companies there. It's primarily rural, so we have industry that is a little bit more blue collar, some factory work, and things of that nature. So a lot of people will look to Kansas City or St. Louis, maybe Columbia or Springfield within the state. But we have a lot of students who get internships still in the region, but outside of Missouri. Some students will even go to one of the coasts or down south. So a lot of students are doing a lot of things in different places. But getting back to your question about services, so both for undergraduate and graduate students, they're able to take advantage on our main campus in Warrensburg of our academic success center. So if they need tutoring in a class, if they need help with writing, they can visit our writing center. They can visit academic support office and get assistance. Their professors are always there. Our professors are open for students dropping in during their office hours or scheduling appointments with them, so they can ask questions about course content or if they have any questions on an assignment. And one of the hallmarks, I think, of UCM is it is very much geared toward applied learning, hands-on experiences. So students might go in, they might have a day of lecture or a period of lecture from a professor, but there's also going to be some time for questions and answers, small group work, and also typically working on one or more projects during the semester that is closely related to what they're studying, receiving during books. So, for example, this semester I had a great opportunity to go in and look at the kind of the classroom space that our undergraduate engineering students are involved in. And majority of what they're doing is really hands-on learning. So they have a whole variety of digital printers. They are involved in competitions where there are certain restrictions on the materials and also the construction of vehicles that they are creating, and also working on doing I can't remember what you call it, but not printmaking, but kind of metallurgy to mass produce, like screws and things like that. And so they really are working on again, applied learning and getting ready for industry, and that sets them up for the internships. That sets them up for careers after they graduate. And again, in like computer science, cybersecurity, data science, for example, both at the undergraduate and the graduate level, students are working on coding projects. They are working on how do we help with encryption. We've actually got a cyber club, and they do some friendly hacking, and they will go in and try to hack into a company's database, and things like that. You know this terminology a lot better than I do, but hack into their database, and then they will follow up with them and say, here's where your weaknesses are, and here's what you should do to kind of make sure that you have a better firewall to protect against any kind of invasion of your data. Also with the internships that you were referencing, one of the great things about our Masters in IT programs is that they have a built-in CPT. So last semester students are required to do an internship as part of their program. And our faculty and also our career services office, they have connections with industries both in-state, regionally, and also out of state, where students have gone to do their internships, get that real-world hands-on experience in their field before they then apply for optional practical training, getting a real job. And so I think that's one of the things that really lends itself not only to the success of the academic programs at UCM and UCM more broadly, but also for students to be successful in their job search and not only get jobs that are aligned with their area of interest and really are tied to what they want to do for a career, but also well-paying jobs and ones where they can then advance in their career.
I remember you mentioning it to me about a student of yours getting a job of $140,000, $160,000 of job right after the graduation. So, and you also mentioned to me that your students are working, especially the students of UCM, from after completing their master's degree are working at different locations, whether it can be Idaho or Colorado or Florida, Texas, and other different locations. So I think that would be something which will motivate more and more students with two things. One, when you mentioned to me about the internships, selection of institution cannot just be on the factors that they have the institutions, they have the organization or companies around the institutions. They have to, the students have to also understand that the institution is capable of training them and placing them even outside the city where they are located in. It's just about the outreach or about the collaborations which they have. Plus, it's not compulsory that the students after graduating should work in the same state. There is a high possibility and always a situation where they have to go and work in a different state where the opportunity knocks better.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Correct. Too much of serious talking, which we have done already
Yeah.
about the admissions and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go on to some fun part, and the
Okay.
fun part is doing up a game called emoticon round. Right?
Okay.
So where
All
I will
right.
ask you a few questions,
All right.
and you will have to say me what type of expression you would put towards
Oh,
that
gosh.
question. So here you have got different emotions,
Yes.
different emojis or emoticons, whatever you call it.
Mm-hmm.
I'll ask you a few questions and you will have to tell me your best matched expression with these questions.
Okay.
Let's start.
Okay.
If you had to choose one emoji to describe the student experience at UCM, which emoji fits the best?
I would say it's probably a combination between these two.
Okay. Nice. And why would that be?
Yeah. Well, I would say, first of all, I might even add maybe this one to start with.
Okay.
So our state, Missouri, is not very well known.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, when international students, their understanding of the United States oftentimes tends to be Washington, D.C.,
Mm-hmm.
New York, Boston, Miami,
Bay Area,
Bay
California.
Area, San Francisco, Seattle, Los Angeles, but they don't know the middle part of the United States.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes when they get there, especially the students who are arriving this week from warm countries where there's about a foot of snow on the ground and it's 0 degrees Fahrenheit, it's a little bit of a change, a little bit of a shock. But I think very quickly
It might turn to this.
They grow to love it. And one of the reasons they grow to love it is because of the people,
Okay.
because of the support that they get. They get support from their faculty members, they get support from my staff,
Mm-hmm.
they get support from other offices around campus.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're very surprised that our president,
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Best, is very visible on campus. He's often wandering around campus and at Christmas
Just chatting
time.
with students.
Yeah, I'll just strike up a conversation. He's very visible. At Christmas time, right before a Christmas break, I found him wandering around campus handing out candy canes, various things to the students. So
Right.
he's very friendly, and students make friends very quickly.
Oh, nice.
They're able to get involved very quickly in student organizations, and they just love the vibe. We had one of our student workers, actually, Misbah. She's from Pakistan,
Mm-hmm.
and she first came to UCM as an exchange student, studied for a year on a U.S. government-sponsored program.
Mm-hmm.
And then earlier this semester, she returned for a graduate degree, started a graduate degree, and she wrote a piece for our student newspaper talking about how after her exchange experience, her short-term study experience, she always had a place in her heart for UCM, and she knew she was going to come back.
Nice.
She didn't know when, she didn't know how,
Uh-huh.
but she knew she was going to do it, and she made that dream come true.
Nice.
And she's a bright star in our office, and just a
Awesome.
great person. But she's not the exception; she's the
Mhm.
rule.
Mm-hmm.
And then
This one.
this one, I think students, I think they have a great time there. They
Mm.
love the community. It's not just about the campus community, but they love Warrensburg.
They get attached emotionally way too much.
I don't think so, but I don't think it's a matter of getting attached emotionally too much. But I think it really becomes a second home for a lot of our students, and they have
Nice.
described that to me. And another story: this summer, I was in my office, and one of the exchange students who had been with us a previous semester, I think just in the fall, she was from one of our French university partners, and she came back to Warrensburg to see her friends. I think it was actually, oh gosh, I can't remember timing of it, but anyway, she came in and I said, it's great that you came back. I said, where else are you traveling in the United States while you're on holiday? And she said, nowhere.
Uh-huh.
I just wanted to come back to Warrensburg and see my friends and see some of my professors. So I think UCM and Warrensburg just it's so welcoming there. People are so friendly. I think it just kind of gets under their skin, and it really does become a second home.
Nice.
Yeah, and an extended family for them. Yeah.
Good to hear these stories, stories
Yeah.
attached to each emotion
Yeah.
which you have just shown.
Yeah.
Let me go to the second question of this,
Okay.
which emoji reflects the social scene and music events at UCM?
Oh goodness, I would probably have to do this one again.
So that means a lot of things keep happening on campus
Yeah,
for
a
the
lot
students.
of things, sporting events, and students can get involved in intramural sports. There are, different student organizations are putting on activities. Students can also take advantage of going to the recreation center, and so they can use the elliptical machines. We have a climbing wall. They can play badminton, basketball. All of that is free. And just the social spaces. They go to the Union, maybe grab a Starbucks there and have coffee while they're studying. Go to the library, do the same thing. And it's just a very, very vibrant campus environment. Sometimes one that I don't often get to see because I'm either in my office or in meetings, or like now I'm on the road.
Traveling.
Yeah.
Correct. One question, what's your response when students ignore the visa guidelines and your advices and keep repeating despite advising many times?
Okay. Probably a combination of this. So it makes me sad, first of all, that they're maybe not following directions. And then this one is probably why? Okay. But really, the advisors are there for support. And one of the things that we've sometimes seen is I think there's an expectation by students that the advisors are going to do the work for them of filling out the application, but that's not their job. Their job is to give them the information and set them off and hopefully follow the instructions. And so I think an attentiveness and making sure that they listen.
Right.
And especially I think what's also helpful, especially when students are getting toward the end of their academic program and maybe they're looking at an internship, CPT, or looking at post-graduation employment, making sure, and this doesn't just apply to UCM, but any institution in the United States, get your documents in early. Just like when you're applying for university, start early in the process, because you start early in the process, you have more time to maybe correct your mistakes, make sure everything's in order, and you don't risk running up against missing a deadline and sort of missing the opportunity to take advantage of that next step in either your academic career or else moving on into your professional career.
Right. That's right. That's the end of our emoticon round.
Okay.
The last 20% of our discussion today.
Very good. All right.
So it involves, you have already mentioned to me about the vibe on the campus, about the festivals, campus students celebrate. You have also mentioned to me about what students prefer, what faculties prefer and everything. About all these things, after hearing of all these things at the campus, I want to understand one success story which you remember, preferably it can be, it can be a story of an Indian student which you remember, one good success story.
So I would probably have to go back to our student workers in our office. Those are the ones that I have the most contact with. But and there's probably a couple in there. I will say that when I was here a year and a half ago, and I was with our president, we did a get together with some prospective students that would be coming in the fall of 23. And I remember think it was during the health check or something, or actually it was during our welcome event, because we have a new student welcome event a few weeks into the semester, both at our Lee's Summit campus, where most of our master's students study, and we also have a welcome event for new international students on our Warrensburg campus. And we were at the MIC event, and there was a group of about 8 students from India, from Hyderabad, and they all came up to me and they said, "Hi, Dr. Phil," and I said, "Well, hello," and they said, "Do you remember me or us?" And of course I don't.
Because you meet a lot of students.
Yeah, because I see a lot of students and a lot of things
Right,
happen. And they said, "Well, we were at the reception,
which you organized at
when
city.
this past May." And so that really means a lot to me when
people come
you know, when I encounter students who I've interacted with overseas, and then I see them on campus. That's really special. And then, of course, I mentioned our student workers, and those are students that I probably get to know a little bit more closely.
Right.
And they do an amazing job, and they don't get paid enough, but they are so talented. And I see in our workplace how they are actually taking what they are learning in the classroom and they're putting it to work in our office. So we've got students who are graduate students, undergraduate students, students who are in our digital media program and communications, and they're putting out social media content. They're doing stuff like this and asking me to make videos, which I'm really uncomfortable with. I don't like doing it. But they're getting testimonials from students. They're doing videos of students saying, "This is my favorite place on campus, and this is why." And they're just amazing, and they help do some of the really sometimes difficult,
very creative work.
And they're dedicated to what they do. And so, for example, Dhirani, who's an undergraduate student in her second year, she started in our office when she was a freshman, and she helps Melissa, who is our office manager. One of the things that she helps me do, whoops, I hit the microphone there. But one of the things that she helps me do is when agency commission payments come around, she helps do an initial check on all the names and all the invoices. And her precision is a lot better than mine. Her patience is a lot better than mine. And I know for a fact that the work that she does is essential to what I'm able to do. And they bring in, we do food days once a month, and they bring in some great food. And they just have a great spirit. And I think we see that with a lot of our students on campus. They're just they're glad to contribute, and they're just full of talent and looking for ways to utilize that every day. So, yeah.
What if you jump into advising the students directly? What would be that one thing which you suggest, which you advise the students they should do to have the most of their experience in the US or say in Missouri?
Okay. One, I would say for on campus, get involved. Don't just focus on your studies, but look for opportunities to get involved in student organizations. Work to get a campus job. First campus job you get might not be your favorite, just like when you start your career, the first job that you get might not be your favorite job, but you're going to grow and you're going to move on. But all those experiences accumulate and make you more talented, make you a better person. For off-campus, I would say kind of ties into on-campus, but make friends with domestic students. Make as many friends. Be a good ambassador. I think when you find that you open yourself up, and I know that's very hard. I'm an introvert, and sometimes it's hard for me to make kind of that first move, if you will, to start asking questions. I've sometimes gotten better at it, and I had to because of my job. And my wife even tells me, she says, "You don't know a stranger." I said, "Well, I have to work at that." But be that way with your peers, and be that way with your faculty members, because you have a lot to offer. Students, international students, have a lot to offer, just as domestic.
And that is the
do.
way they will be able to enjoy or get that exposure what they are there for.
Oh yeah,
in a different country.
And when they make friends with students from India, or they make friends with students from Cambodia or Ecuador or Spain, all of a sudden, for our domestic students, they will realize that the world is a smaller place, and that going to another country is more accessible, and it also begins to break down stereotypes of the places. And a lot of our students from Missouri have never met anybody from outside the United States. Most of them have not traveled outside the borders. And so this is really their first opportunity to meet somebody from another country. To experience food, to experience different accents, to
the thought processes,
exactly,
the way they solve the problems.
Yeah, political differences, and realize that it's not to have a difference of opinion. It doesn't mean that we're combative. It just means that we have a different growing up environment, and we see things differently. Yeah.
So this leads me to another question which comes to my mind.
Okay.
That a lot of students are nervous about traveling to a different city or a different country for their higher education. So what would be your piece of advice for them who are very nervous about going to a different country and studying?
Don't be.
Don't be nervous. it's not a new place. It's as same as your home, right? And
but
you will agree with this, that going and studying in a university where they accept international students, the staff, everybody on the campus there makes you feel comfortable and makes you feel at home.
And the other thing about UCM's faculty and even our staff is, for the size of institution, and I've worked at a number of schools over the years, we have probably the most diverse faculty that I've seen, especially for a mid-sized public institution in a rural setting. I don't know what percentage of our faculty are international, but it's pretty significant. And I mentioned, sort of, not flippantly, but very briefly, don't be afraid. But I know when I started recruiting, and every time I go to a new country, I don't know what to expect. And there's a little bit of trepidation, but a lot of times it's not knowing, how do I get from point A to point B? What's the food going to be like? Are the people going to like me? But usually after, a few minutes, maybe a couple of hours there, that'll kind of wash us away. And I think one of the things I've discovered every place I've been, there are a lot of things that are unfamiliar, but spend enough time with people and spend enough time just kind of walking around and trying different things and sometimes getting lost, which is the best way to discover sometimes, I think. You find out that people are more similar than they are different. And that we share a lot more than we don't. And even though we might have different religions, different ways of worshiping things, even though we might have different ways that our families are sort of constructed or interact with one another, even though our language is different, fundamentally, we're all human, we all eat, we all breathe, and we all love.
Correct.
And we all have something to share that's unique, but we all have something to share that we can communally embrace as special to who we are as people.
Right, that's really a great thought. We all are human beings, and we all do all the common things to survive. And it's not something which is which somebody has to be afraid about.
Mhm.
Initially, it might look a little awkward, but over the period of time,
Yeah.
it becomes more easy.
Yeah.
There. Thank you so much for sharing
Yeah.
those thoughts. And
Yeah.
this brings to our last round of the discussion, which is
Okay.
called the rapid fire round, where
Okay.
I'm going to ask you questions
Alright.
and you have to answer it
I'll-
as fast as possible,
I'll
either
try.
in a word or in a sentence.
Okay, is this where I can make an excuse that my jet lag might kick in and my brain's not functioning quite as sharply as it should be?
You really want to make that excuse? Yes, we will take that, but
Okay.
I think we will
Okay.
finish it as fast as possible.
Okay, there we go.
Okay. All right, sure.
All right.
So, what's the UCM's most famous event?
Most famous event, I would say two. I would say the International Food Fest that I mentioned earlier.
Uh-huh.
I would also say our Founders Day event in the spring.
Nice.
And so on the lawn in the quad, there's a big picnic that's sponsored by the president, and mules come out. We have live mules that
nice.
students can pet, and bubble machines and the whole thing. So it's really great.
Very happening on the campus.
And I get out of my office for that.
Best place to hang out on campus?
That would be a tie between the student union and the library, probably during cold weather, but and also during warm weather. But a lot of students also like to go down to hike around Pirtle Springs, which is part of the UCM. It's a little bit ways off campus, but there are fountains down there, hiking trails, and it's like a nice peaceful getaway.
Right. And this one's will be very easy.
Yeah.
What is his name? The
So
UCM
this-
mascot's name?
This is our mascot. This is Mo the Mule. And I also have a large Mo that I travel with. I didn't think to bring him today. But our mascot, Mo, the MO is the state abbreviation for Missouri.
Mm-hmm.
But the reason we are the mules is there's an interesting story behind that, if you don't mind me sharing. But Warrensburg and the surrounding county, Johnson County, used to be the main place in the United States where mules were bred.
Mm-hmm.
And then during World War I, before a lot of automobiles and things were used, mules were used to move the military equipment in Europe. And the majority of the mules came from Warrensburg.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
That's an interesting story.
Yeah.
We would like to hear more about that
Yeah.
maybe in our second discussion,
Yeah.
which we might going to have.
Yeah. And so our mascot, so our sports teams, the men are called the Mules, and the women's sports team are called the Jennies. Okay.
Nice. One thing every student should do in the US.
Get lost. Go someplace that isn't famous. So a lot of our students, they'll travel like on breaks to New York or DC or Miami, someplace like that. Maybe go to Disneyland or Disney World, but get a little bit more off the beaten path and go to
Travel the road less traveled.
Yeah, almost do kind of like that dart experience where you take a dart and you throw it and see where it lands and
then we go
explore
there.
it, because I think you'll find something special and
Nice.
something unusual. There's a lot of weird stuff in the United States, but there are a lot of beautiful places too that you don't often see in the movies or hear about in music or whatever.
One word for the weather of Missouri.
I'm sorry, one word.
One word for the weather of Missouri.
Fickle.
Fickle?
If you know what that word means. They always say, if you don't like the weather, wait a little bit because it'll change. But about a month ago, it was still fairly warm. It was above freezing, 40s, 50 degrees Fahrenheit.
Nice.
So kind of in the teens, maybe inching a little bit close to 20s sometimes.
Right.
And then right after I left, a blizzard came through and dumped about that much snow on the ground.
Oh,
and now the temperatures are well below freezing.
Oh.
They're probably around 7 to 10 degrees Celsius. So, yeah.
That's the type of temperature which we find super cold
Yeah.
here in Hyderabad, and it doesn't get this cold in the southern region of
right,
India.
yeah.
It only gets cold
Yeah.
only in the northern part of
Yeah.
India this way.
Yeah, but
So-
we do have 4 seasons in Missouri. So summers in Missouri are comparable to not quite summers here in India,
Mm-hmm.
but probably as you're getting into maybe about March when you start to see the temperatures inch up into like the high 30s.
Mm-hmm.
And then spring and fall are probably my favorites. So temperatures are a little bit more temperate. That tends to be our rainier seasons.
Mm-hmm.
And then winter. Some winters are a little bit more mild.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't have much snow, much cold weather last winter.
Mm-hmm.
This winter, it's coming back again. So, yeah.
Talking about favorites, what is the best place you have been to in India?
Oh gosh. Best place I've been to, so let's see. You're going to have to help me remember this, but I think it was in Vijayawada.
Vijayawada?
I was right on the coast, right?
So that is Visakhapatnam.
Vizag.
Vizag. Yeah.
So it was in Vizag. And I was there on a recruitment trip, and
Mhm.
we'd finished a fair. And in the evening, we walked along the beach.
Beach, the coastal area.
and coast
Ramakrishna
of the
Beach.
Indian Ocean, and then had a meal at this restaurant that was right there. I've learned since that I think it either burned down or got wiped out in a storm or something, but I still remember the sun had set and the moon was rising, and it was a full moon coming over the ocean,
Nice.
and it was just beautiful.
Nice.
And so, I've seen a lot of neat things. Last time I was here, I finally got out to the Taj Mahal in Agra. That was gorgeous. I've been to Jamanad, and a lot of other stuff. But I think it was just a very
Pleasant.
peaceful moment, and something I'd never seen before. So yeah.
All right, Dr. Phil, that was it from my side. Thank you so
Yeah.
much for giving time and sharing
Yeah.
these experiences with us. I'm sure
Yeah.
all the audience of ours will
Yeah.
definitely like this and would want to, learn a lot from this video.
Yeah.
So I once again let you know that along with us was Dr. Phil Hull from the University of Central Missouri. He is the Director for International Student Services, and thank you so much for having taking time out and being here
Absolutely, yeah.
at our podcast show.
Yeah, thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. And
Yeah. Do you have any message for our audience?
I would last closing thing, I think, kind of going back to your question about, if students are a little bit nervous about coming to the U.S., coming to UCM, I think one of the things that you'll find, especially at UCM, but most places in the United States, you're going to find a lot of friendly people. You're going to find a lot of support. You're going to make friends easily, and you're going to find a country and more importantly a community wherever you settle that is going to be open to who you are, is going to welcome, and that you will find as a second home.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for
Yeah,
that.
thank you.
Thank you, everyone.